What are you guys doing?
I love you, baby. And if it's
Well, it's a little chilly out here today. We're going to be working in the pole barn. As you can see, we've kind of put up a tarp along the backside of the tools just to help kind of protect the snow and the rain from blowing in as much. So just kind of temping that in until we get some sides on this thing. But that's not going to happen before this winter. So we want to protect the tools we got stuffed in here. So we're going to hang up another chunk of tarp around this side just to kind of help out a little bit. Where you going, Oliver?
He's like, I know where the comfy furniture is.
Alright, it's a little bit dark in here. As you can see, we got some lights up overhead, kind of help out. Getting to be that time of year where it's kind of dark and dreary and don't have that much daylight. So with that said though, it'll be nice to have a tarp up along the side, keep all the tools from getting rain and snow blown in on them. So I'm excited about that.
All right, so this is going to be our last nice day with decent temperatures. We are forecasted to have rain and snow in the next 10-day forecast with like 2 days of partial sun. So what we're doing today is we're going to clean out this bed right here, which has just a bunch of dead tomatoes that got zapped by our first freeze. And we are going to plant garlic. Might be a little late for garlic, but I don't think so. I think it'll be fine. I've never actually planted garlic before, so this will be a first time for me. So I'm excited for that. So let's go ahead and get that done. So funny thing, I assumed that after our first freeze that our tomatoes were just dead wiped out. I mean, all of the bushes looked really terrible, and I assumed all of the tomatoes on them ruined because it was a pretty decent freeze. However, now that I'm out here actually doing something with these, I mean, I kind of just considered it a loss, whatever was left. I had pulled a bunch of the green stuff, but I just left everything else that hadn't even like barely started to ripen. So I pulled a bunch of the green stuff and I left anything that hadn't even like started to blush at all. I just left it on the vine, and I figured because I've gotten so many tomatoes this year, I figured it'd be fine. But actually all of these tomatoes aren't ruined. Some of them have actually ripened. The ones that are green aren't mushy or gross or anything. So I'm gonna pull them all and I'm gonna go ahead and put them in the house to finish ripening up, and I will do something with them when I have a chance. Okay, so as I clean out this bed, what I'm doing is pulling the stakes, because they're all like cedar. They're like pieces of cedar boards that we had, so I'm gonna save them because there's no point in throwing them away, and I'll use them again next year or next summer. So I'm gonna pull the stakes and separate those. I'm gonna toss all of the tomatoes aside to either burn or compost, I'm not sure. We don't really get pests here where we're at. I had something eating my tomatoes at one point, but it wasn't eating the tomatoes, it was eating the leaves. We get so dry here. We pretty much have very low humidity all through the summer. We don't really get rain. We didn't have rain for like 3 months. So we don't get blight or anything like that. Like the tomato plants don't get diseased. They looked pretty much perfect right up until the first freeze wiped them out. So I might compost them, I'm not sure. But at any rate, I'm gonna separate this stuff out and finish getting this bed cleaned out. I had a tomato casualty, or I was a casualty of a tomato attack. I was pulling out a tomato and it was nice and firm and it felt just fine. And I took a bite and this is what it did to my shirt. It puked all over me, so that's embarrassing. But I always wear work clothes outside, like work clothes, because I am messy no matter what I'm doing outside. And I end up wearing pretty much anything I touch, so anyways. So yeah, I got this bed cleaned out. That took, I don't know, like less than 10 minutes to get it all cleaned out. And it's kind of funny because all of these tomatoes just kept dropping off the plants. What I'll do is I'll come through and I'll pick up the ones that are still good and the rest I'll compost. And then what I decided to do with the plants is I'm gonna throw them on that bed behind me there. I'm gonna throw them on that bed where the corn was, because that's kind of just straight dirt and we'd like to build that up a little bit. We don't have any compost or anything on it. So I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put the tomato plants on there. I'm gonna mulch the corn stalks that are there. I'm just gonna mulch it with my lawnmower because it does a fantastic job mulching. So, and I'm just, instead of removing all of that organic matter that's already there, I'm gonna go ahead and just mulch it up. So it'll be useful this coming spring. It'll break down. So yeah. So yesterday after work, I came out and I only had an hour before dark. So I cleaned up a lot of the stuff that was here in the garden, but I also picked up all of the buckets and everything. So the only bucket that I can find is this beat up Lowe's bucket that I'm pretty sure that we used for concrete at one point, but that's okay. It's dry inside for the most part, so I'm gonna put all the tomatoes in there so that I can take them inside the house and get them out of this bed. So I don't think I'm gonna have a chance to get back out here before the weather gets really gross, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean out these. I'm gonna go ahead and clean out these 4 raised beds as quick as possible. I have a very limited amount of time, but let's see what we can get accomplished. And I cannot believe how many Romas are still on these plants. My 5-gallon bucket is almost full.
All right, so the music situation at the shop has been an old alarm clock radio. The alarm portion of it died years and years ago, so we've just been using the radio function on it. Speaking of snow and rain blowing in, it was sitting along the edge of the shop here and got soaked with water, and now the rest of it has died. The radio portion of it has died. So well, it's time to treat ourselves to a little bit of music upgrade. So we've gotten the Milwaukee Bluetooth little speaker here. So we're gonna try it out and see what we think. Before you go. We're getting some stuff brought in out of the weather as well. We have a bunch of old windows that we saved out of the cabin, putting them up top in the rafters so they don't get ruined. We'd like to save them and make a nice greenhouse out of them.
Cats are having the best time. I am chucking the dead plants over into the corn patch, which is their favorite place to play, and every time I chuck a plant over there, they run over and attack it. After the freeze came, it's really amazing how the foliage on the plants just dies off really fast, and you can see what was underneath that you're missing. So now that I'm going around the garden, I haven't been out here in a little while, a couple weeks. I am noticing all of the little Jack B. Little pumpkins that are still out here. Literally just like ripped and yanked and cut all the tomatoes out as fast as I possibly could, but I got all of the beds cleaned out. I have about an hour and a half before dark, so I'm gonna pick up all these Romas behind me and then plant garlic.
we got these old cabinets hung up. You might recognize these if you've been with the channel for a while. We
Just see me like creeping in the background, like in the dark, like a little creeper.
So you might recognize these cabinets. We pulled them out of the cabin a long time ago. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, probably like
2 years ago?
2 or 3 years ago. All of the years are starting to blur together.
Anyhow, we're recycling them for now. Eventually we'll get some nice cabinets out here in the shop once we get a concrete floor and walls and all that stuff. But they work for now.